Tuesday morning, I named and blessed two very small babies. They were 8 days old. Two babies of our congregation who sat just in the sunroom of their grandparents' house in their car seats in the presence of 3 generations of their family. When we welcome a child or children into the covenant at Brit Milah, a bris, or Brit Banim, a covenant ceremony for our children, we place them on what is called Kisei Shel Eliyahu, Elijah's chair. Elijah's chair, if you think of Elijah as the forerunner of the Messiah in our tradition, Elijah's chair symbolically shows that each of the children we name and bless and welcome into the covenant has the potential to bring the Messiah, to use the gifts of their hearts, their hands, their feet running to do justice, and the words of their mouths to better, or dare I pray, perfect our world. It's always a powerfully sacred moment for me to see this tiny baby on what might be an ordinary chair but has a talus or a piece of fabric or something that has connection for the family. And to see that tiny child there and imagine the potential in that child. These little boys were wrapped, each one in a talit of belonging to their grandfather and the other of one of their great-grandfathers. And as I looked at them, I was filled with much-needed hope, more than ever. For let's name it, hope's been in scarce supply these days. It's been a rough week, a rough 2 weeks. And no doubt we come to this Shabbat, no doubt you do as I do, with more emotions and exhaustion than we can name. Anger, sorrow, fear, confusion, guilt, anxiety, to name a few. We here in the United States worry about family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues. We worry about civilians who are at home running in and out of bomb shelters, about injured receiving care, and we pray returning to health and healing. We pray for soldiers, as we just did, fighting for their lives and their homes, our home, Israel. We pray for hostages whose faces flash before our eyes in so many ways, in the media or just in our quiet moments. We've read, we've listened, we've watched, listened, and read again. So many of us can't turn off the news. We've wrestled with social media. We wonder, what do I say, and is this accurate, and what do I do? And we've been trying to help, giving tzedakah, protesting, sending needed items. Some of us have been trying to talk to our children and grandchildren with really no idea what to say. We have been participants in how many conversations, each of us, about Israel. Perhaps we're explaining, defending, challenging. Some of those conversations are constructive, and many put us on the defensive, as we're pushed to the wall to explain, told that we're wrong, giving history that we're not sure we know enough of, but we keep trying to talk. Some of us have been the recipients of such anger and hatred, even from those we never expected would give it. And some of us have waited for expressions of support, some of which have come, and many of which have not. At the same time, we lived with multiple conflicting truths. We want Israel to be safe. We want Israelis to be safe. And we don't want the innocent to suffer. We want hostages to be freed. Again and again. So many of us are uncertain about what to do and feel helpless. We wonder how to be helpful, how to be proud Jews, and how to be proud Jews who love Israel. We gain wisdom for this, perhaps from an unlikely source, Noach, or Noah. We read this week in the Torah portion called Noach about him. And you're familiar with Noah and the ark and the animals, all that, right? But what you might not think of, and why I call Noah an unlikely source, is because Noah is a guy whose goodness, whose righteousness is questioned. You see, Torah says Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. So some commentators say Noah was super righteous. He lived in horrible times, right? Times that were so horrible that God wanted to destroy them. And despite all the despicable behavior around him, he remained righteous. Others say, well, he was only marked righteous because he was compared to the terrible people around him. A bit of moral relativism. But there's another point in the opening words of the portion. Noah walked with God. This is where we can learn. We who sit here in the United States, admittedly not in the physical lines of attackers and bombs, but who are still, and we know, impacted ever so powerfully by events in Israel, we can learn about walking with God. What does it mean to walk with God? My teacher, our teacher, Rabbi Lawrence Hoffman, a great scholar of liturgy and ritual and teacher of Torah, reminds us that we know where God and Noah walked. They walked in a world so horrific that God wanted to destroy it. What made Noah special was his penchant for walking among the people also, but only with God at his side, so that he could understand what they were doing, but see it from the perspective of divine morality. And then comes Noah, reminding us that no one is absolutely perfect in an imperfect world. We know that. These days our world seems beyond imperfect, and it's challenging to maintain hope. It's challenging to imagine what we can change. This week I've taught a class with we had 50 8th through 12th graders here Monday evening. We listened to our students asking for information, asking if they were safe, feeling sad and angry and frustrated and scared. Rabbi Geffen and I were on a Zoom with some of our college students earlier this week. College students who so want to defend Israel and so want to stand up as right and are being Jewish and are pushed again by people saying, you're wrong, your country is wrong, your people are wrong. Who are asking us, should I take off my Magen David? Should I say that I'm Jewish? I don't know what to do. And we've all spoken with so many of you in classes and conversations and emails in the hall and services and who knows, everywhere. We've heard you talk on the one hand about people who've come forward, maybe people you didn't expect, who said, I'm with you. I stand with the Jewish people and with Israel. Others of us have watched for colleagues in our universities, our businesses, our school districts, our teachers. We're looking for them to get it right, to say something. And we've wondered about our neighbors and friends who say nothing. We wait for them to reach out. But some of us have learned that maybe they didn't reach out not because of hatred, not because of anger, but they didn't know what to say. They were uncertain. My heart has broken many, many times over this week, holding space for conversations, especially listening to the determination and duress of our teenagers and college students. They feel so determined to defend themselves, to tell it all, to defend Israel. I see in these conversations, all of our conversations, that we are all trying to walk with God. We walk with God when we stop judging our neighbors and friends for silence, and we reach out instead to initiate conversation and say to that person we're waiting to reach out to us, you know what, I'm hurting. I appreciate your support. We walk with God when we thank those who do reach out, those we know closely, know well, or those maybe who are a neighbor or someone down the road or down the hall in our office, and say thank you for speaking up. We walk with God when we reach out to teachers, administrators, and school districts and offer peaceful teaching and support. We walk with God when we name aloud wrongs and horrors, like the hate crime that happened in our own state, the killing of an innocent Muslim boy and serious injury given to his mother. A hate crime. Let's name it. We walk with God when we teach our children to make cards, to make phone calls and video chats with Israelis, with friends, with family, maybe even for people we don't know. And when we encourage our children, our grandchildren, our students to give their allowance, or some of them have even started businesses to raise money for tzedakah. We walk with God when we show our students that we are part of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and we are lovers of Israel, Ohavei Yisrael, and Ohavei Shalom, lovers of peace. We walk with God when we give tzedakah to support life, health, and sustenance. And we walk with God when we turn our frustration at being so far away from Israel to acting with kindness right here at home. Maybe not even toward Israel, but even with the refugees, those who are food insecure, those who are in need in our own community, as well as those we reach out to help in Israel. We walk with God when we try to teach and explain those who really want to be into conversation with us, who really don't understand, and say, "Tell me." We walk with God when we stand up for Israel and voice our outrage at our alma maters, who skirt condemnation of violence on civilians and justify terror. We walk with God when we gather to plead for the release of the hostages. And when we gather to show we are not alone, gathering to sing Hatikva and remind Israel that we are here across the miles. And yes, we walk with God when we are here or in our homes, actively and proudly living our Jewish lives. Each of us has the ability to walk with God, and each of us has the ability to determine how we do it. I'm not here to tell you, nor do I ask you to tell me. What is tiny for one of us might feel huge for someone else. What is huge for someone what is tiny for them might feel huge for us. My ask is not that we do it all, and not that anyone does something that makes you feel endangered or scared, but that we do it. That we look to the divine spark within us, because last week we read in Torah reminding us that each of us is created in God's image. Let us look to the divine spark within each of us, remember that we have God within us, and look to walk with God, to elevate our actions, our words, and our deeds. And as we do it, let's be honest, so much of it will make us uncomfortable. But none of us are comfortable now. So anything we may do may make us uncomfortable. I'm not advocating fear, but discomfort is where we are. And that discomfort, frankly, is not new for us as Jews. Think about our faith, our history. We live with the greatest of heritage and resilience. But we also live with discomfort every day. What do we do at the end of a wedding? We smash a glass. That glass reminds us of the fragility of love and life. It also reminds us of destruction in our heritage. What do? We mark Yom HaShoah, the day of Holocaust remembrance, Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembering fallen Israeli soldiers, and then we mark Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Two of the most somber, mournful days on our calendar, and then Israel celebrates. If you've ever been in Israel, you know that Yom HaZikaron, the day that has marked moments of silence, where commemorations happen all over the country, ends at sundown, and celebrations begin in the streets for Israel's Independence Day. We are a people who each week at the end of Shabbat and at the end of each Passover Seder, who do we invite in? Elijah. Elijah reminds us not just of the babies in our world, but of all of us. We can better our world. We can perfect our world if we work at it. My ask, my friends, to you, my friends, our community, is that we live as Jews and we walk with God. We walk with God inspired by what we believe God would ask us to do. That's personal. Let us acknowledge that each of us is created in God's image, and we have the potential and the challenge to aim higher and to move closer to God each and every day. Last night I was in Manhattan with my elder daughter. We walked through Times Square, coincidentally, as it were. We were walking to theater, but we were walking just as a rally of Jews was declaring Am Yisrael Chai. And they were demanding that the hostages be freed. And if you know Times Square, you know that you have tall buildings with screens and images are flashed. The top of one of those towers facing south on Times Square were flashed the pictures of the hostages. I'm not proud to admit I had to look away for a few moments. The painful overwhelm was too much. And then I felt guilty for doing that. It was me. I was walking in the streets of Manhattan with my child safely. At the same time, I felt the plaintive power expressed by those who gathered. Jews with kippot, Jews without, Jews holding flags, Jews pushing baby carriages, Jews speaking, and Jews turning to sing first our national anthem and then Israel's. Each of them trying to walk with God. And so I leave you this evening with words spoken last Shabbat by my colleague, Rabbi Rachel Timoner. She gave a powerful sermon last Shabbat in her congregation in Brooklyn that many of you may have seen in the pages of the newspaper or online. Rabbi Timoner urged, "Please do not take your mezuzah off your door. Please do not stop assembling in your synagogues to be together. Please do not stop living as proud Jews. Please do not stop standing as steadfast supporters of our Israeli family, who feel more alone in the world now than ever. Please do not stop calling for the return of the hostages. Please do not stop giving aid to funds. Please do not stop calling Israeli friends and family here and there. Please do not stop all of the Jewish things you do, every one of them. Every Jewish thing you do matters." I add only, please do not stop walking with God. Let's set an example for those 2 tiny babies I named earlier this week, and for everyone else. Shabbat Shalom.